Right, so I have picked a highly contentious subject. And I know there's a lot of managers, and I know there are a couple of people who have turned up here just to see me present on this, including Adrian. So basically, how to build a sustainable LabVIEW software team. Okay, right, now excuse me if some of my presentation doesn't work because I haven't actually had a chance to go through it well. Right, so me, cheesy picture. And currently work for Moog Aircraft Group, been there about 2 years, seen a lot of different things in my career. I've been a CLA for about 15 years. 2001 I started, a long time ago. He worked on small to medium-sized test systems for avionics, testing anything from compressors, electronic controllers, hydraulic actuation valves, you name it, I've pretty much done it with regard to actually sort of the actual control and testing of systems. Mostly military and aircraft stuff, so it all has to be done right. That is a pain. Good occupation, very difficult to work in. Okay, so I'm surprised Petra didn't put one of these up. See, I remembered. So, hero is female, Marie Curie. Everybody knows who she is. Probably one of the greatest scientists of ever. One thing I didn't know about her, she suffered from OCD. And you joking about OCD earlier on, I've suffered with it since I was about 16 years old. So you can imagine what my block diagrams look like. They are absolutely perfection, otherwise I hate them. Okay, Laura will testify to this. So, amazing woman, did lots and lots of clever stuff. But the main thing I picked up on it was she did it all with OCD. And it's sometimes debilitating. Okay, but I'm not going to dwell on that because that's not what we're talking about. Okay, so sustainable team. Let's break it down. So sustainable basically means able to be maintained at a certain level for a period of time, right? And good educational practices. Team, number of people working together on a common project or a common role. Now, most avionics programs last anywhere between like 25 and 50 years these days. Some of them, which are like the Tornado, ended not so long ago. My old man worked on that when he was started out. So, hell of a long period of time, you've got to be able to sustain that team. Okay? Just chain of thought there. So, looking at those two words, you've got two main practices to actually look at. You've got to get the team to work together. You've got to be able to keep it going for a period of time. If you can't do that, you're knackered before you start. Okay? So, how do we usually make up a team of LabVIEW developers? Everybody sees this diagram. I think everybody who's certified in the room. How many certified people have we got in the room? Show me some hands. Come on, certified people. Okay. Right. Yeah. Obviously, you have the architect at the top. They're meant to be the absolute gospel to everything for LabVIEW. Certified developers, they're meant to be the people who can do stuff with LabVIEW. Associate developers, the people who are learning to do stuff with LabVIEW. Okay. Which is going to cause a bit of a question mark in the room. Right, I actually think it should look more like that. No certified LabVIEW architect knows everything about LabVIEW. Would you agree or disagree? Would you agree that you haven't worked on motion, vibration, DAC, RT, FPGA? There's going to be elements of LabVIEW you don't know. Just because this person hasn't taken this exam doesn't mean this person isn't actually clever enough to do some of the stuff that he does. Yeah. Likewise with CLAD. He might have only taken his exam. He could be fresh out of college. Or he could have been using LabVIEW for the last 20 years. I'm going to pick on someone now. Adrian, what? Yeah. There you go. So it's probably expired by now. Right. So there's a lot of reasons. And this is what I'm trying to instigate where I work at the moment. I don't want certification to be a differentiator between staff. Currently, okay, I'm a CLA. I've been working with LabVIEW for the last 25 years. Laura, who's sat at the back of the room, who I'm going to really embarrass now. So everybody look at Laura. So she's been working on the same piece of code within our business for the last 7 years. Right? Not certified. I'll tell you now. She'll walk a CLAD, and chances are she'll probably do a CLD quite easily. She's got probably more common sense when it comes to LabVIEW and implementing code that I'm asking her to write than most developers I've actually worked with. And she's very keen to learn about it too. Okay? So flat structure, that's the first thing. Okay? This is getting very, very deep, very, very quickly, isn't it? So, big things about sustainable team. Collaboration. Same language, whether it be different countries, different knowledge bases. There's people who you talk to who are talking absolute gibberish and you don't understand it. You can talk about the deepest LabVIEW in the world. You can stand up here and you can go on about DQMH this, DQMH that. If you haven't learned what DQMH is, you're not going to understand it. Common goal. Is everybody pulling towards that common goal? Growth. Supply education to them. Empowerment. That's a big one. Right? Empowerment. If you don't let somebody actually say, I'd like to do it this way, well, hurdles get put in place. Processes. Now, how many people work in the military industry here? People work with processes every day of the week. It's rubbish, isn't it? Told how to do it, when to do it, what to write, how to write it, and also what colour the wires have to be. Write the process, don't actually know what they're talking about. And they just make a lot of noise for the making of a lot of noise. So processes have to be malleable. Processes have to be developed. Okay. So going from collaboration, who can tell me what TLA stands for? Come on. Somebody will win a Moo keyring. Go on, what's a TLA? Well, then, Ralph. So, can all the team members communicate together? If you talk to people in acronyms, nobody understands you unless you've got the Bible of acronyms for the company, which is generally about 20 pages, which nobody can be bothered to read. And unless you've sat in these conversations for years, you still don't understand. And the funny thing is, they change them almost like on a weekly basis. Inclusion. Every member of this team needs to be included. I don't care whether it's the junior member staff to the highest CLA. They need to be involved in the discussions regarding that task. You've got to do it. Understanding. Basically, the bottom line of that. If the team doesn't understand what they're doing, again, you're stuck in the mud. Like code that just a CLA can understand. And I know that I've had certain conversations with some people in this room, which I'm not going to look at directly. I've seen frameworks put in place, which are very, very highly technical frameworks. And you look at it and you go, well, I'm just getting this person to fill in the blanks. It's like that you kind of need to understand what that framework is doing. If you don't understand what the framework's doing, how are you going to debug the thing? How are you sure it's doing what it's meant to be doing? You need to make sure everybody understands what the code is doing, what it's meant to do, and if it does do it. Common goal, again, big one, inclusion. You've got to let these people know where we're heading, what we're doing. I've got to deliver. If you don't tell these people these things, a lot of this is not just aimed at LabVIEW. This is actually aimed at any team as well, by the way. Listen to the team. Team are the people who are doing the job. If the team come back and say, we can streamline this, listen to them. It'll make a big difference. We're going through a thing at the moment with a couple of the procedures at our place. They've been written by an outside of Tewkesbury, another part of MOOC. And because they do their software one way, we're forced to do it their way. But that, for us, it doesn't work because it's just too big. It's too cumbersome. I said to you 6 months to get a piece of software released because it's got to be sent all the way around the world for sign-offs. It doesn't work. One company I worked at, you could release a piece of software in a week. Why is the difference? So, big thing, listen to the developers. Okay, growth. Team members will learn from team members. That's the big one. When I first joined MOOC, we got given a project to redesign some of the test equipment. And I sat down with Laura and said, what do you know? I'd only met Laura in the interview. And she said, well, we've been working on this bit of code. And this bit of code was written by somebody who's uncertified. And it was written 20 years ago. So you could imagine what a spider's nest that piece of code's turned into. So you're talking global variables, not encapsulated, no event structures, so forth, so forth, so forth. So I thought, okay, fair enough. So I said, what training course have you been on? She told me she's on core 1, core 2. I said, okay, so I know what level you're at. I thought, I know. I'll start teaching you from that level. Entire piece of code for 6 months, not going above core 3. The standard of the code was not above, sorry, the actual content of the code was nowhere above core 3. But the difference is any LabVIEW developer could pick it up and read it, could pick it up and use it. So take time to explain what you're doing. Phone call last night from a guy in one of our other departments. Andy, I don't understand why this doesn't work. Spent an hour. He now understands about ref nums and why passing a ref num into a subVI allows you to control the on the upper VI. He didn't know how to do it. For the sake of an hour, big deal. Not difficult. Allow the team to get certified. Okay, you want to see how these people are progressing. Laura, we're trying to talk her into this, and she's going to hate me for mentioning this. We're trying to get her to do a CLAD and possibly the CLD end of the year. But she's got lots of university things to do, so she's not going to do it. But we've got another developer as well who we're trying to get to do the CLAD as well, and then try and push them up through the ranks. But again, we're not going to differentiate between CLA, CLD, CLAD. It's a case of we all work and pull together. Because if you differentiate, you're just going to have that one big peak, and somebody's going to write that piece of code nobody understands when that person leaves. Remote growth. A lot of companies stand in the way. A lot of companies actually almost stop you from learning. Whether it's doing the online training, whether it's going on training courses, getting Kabul in. I'm going to advertise you now. Kabul does a lot of our training for us, and the feedback we've had, absolutely superb. And these are anything from mechanical engineers, electronics engineers, and software developers. And they've all taken it on. So we're trying to promote the understanding of LabVIEW across the entire department, not just the software developers. Okay? Well then, love this word. This is brilliant. This really annoys management when you say it. You want to listen to the team. Let them have an opinion. Be inclusive. Love that word as well. Inclusion is my favorite word at the moment. We're currently allowing 2 of our lowest grade engineers to lead our programs because they can. They might not know it yet, but they can do it. We sat down as senior engineers and our manager, and we said, who do we put as leads? One person came up with, well, why don't we lead the programs as seniors? I said, but it's not growing the team. Another guy said, well, that guy's got all the experience in the world to do this. Said, actually, we know the 2 youngest engineers are actually very, very keen to learn, very keen to actually get experience. The only way of getting someone experience, let them do it. Support them, but let them do it. Okay? Getting very deep, this, isn't it? It's getting very deep. Processes. We hate them with a passion. I've worked with them for the last 40 years, sorry, 35 years, and you kind of get used to it. Tie your team up in knots and knots, right? Now, somebody's going to say, why isn't there a K on the second one, right? If you're told you don't do it like this, you don't do it like that, you don't do it like that, it's painful. It really is painful. They need to be thorough, but they also need to be usable. If you can't use them, it's a pointless exercise. Another thing which we're going through at the moment, we got told one size fits all in the way of test rigs. We got told one size fits all in the way of processes. One size does not fit all, right? I know I'm pulling a lot of really contentious thoughts out here. One size is not the be all and end all. It needs to be a malleable situation. Right. So from your actually implementing all those points which I said, you'll get improvement morale. You'll get a common knowledge base. You'll get universal methodologies eventually because everybody will start programming in the same way because they all understand it. Ever been in that situation where somebody's brought you a bit of code, they've put it in front of you and gone, what the hell does this do? Who wrote it? And now we're going to have to rewrite it because none of us understand it. I think I can see a lot of nodding heads. You let everybody know what you're doing. You get everybody involved in what you're doing. Everybody understands it. One person gets up and leaves your team. Lo and behold, the rest of the team still understand the piece of code which you've written. Get ongoing success. And a good reputation. Okay? So, not mention my previous employer in this. I know a few of you already know who I used to work for. This is a perfect example and one reason why I actually left the company. So, 15 years developing test systems using the fundamentals of LabVIEW, not using any wonderful frameworks, not using any OOP, DQMH, whatever you want to call it. By the way, I've got no qualms about DQMH. It's just a personal preference that I don't use it. So my code, very, very straightforward, very simple to actually pick up and run with. Any LabVIEW developer who's been on core 3, got to pick it up and run with it. No problems at all. To this, we went to an unstructured introduction of OOP and DQMH. There was one person in the business that was working on the actual project, and it wasn't me. It was 3 of us actually working in the department. A single point of knowledge about that piece of code. About the development time, because we didn't know this new technology, we didn't know this new framework. We started getting annoyed quite dramatically. There were quite a few stiff conversations about it and the ideas behind it and why we didn't want to go down this route. And yes, I departed the company. Dropped, the inclusion dropped, the actual teamwork dropped. It was all put on one person. Totally unsustainable. That one person now gets up and leave. That company, you can't support that software unless you've got a very, very, very clever LabVIEW engineer in the marketplace who wants to buy in on it. Now, this is what I'm trying to do at Moog in the company. That's anybody from engineering to test equipment, across the board. I know who they are. I know what skill level they are. I know what level I can talk to them at. I put in there, and I'm basically the fountain of knowledge for all these LabVIEW users. I know it sounds like I'm singing my own praises, but the fact of the matter is, a lot of these people have come to me and said, how do I do this? How do I do this? And you give them the answer. And if you can't give them the answer, you find the answer. Big one. Take it back to basics. Take it absolutely back to basics. There is no point in teaching someone the most complex framework if they don't understand what a cluster is. Not saying that Laura doesn't understand what a cluster is. Laura does understand what a cluster is. Take the time to actually explain the code to people. Every piece of code, we did a 6-month stint from about November last year to February this year. And we got asked to write this piece of code. Me and Laura worked together, and it was quite open. I think that's the word for saying it. It was very open how we actually worked together. If Laura had a question, she come and ask me. If I had a question about her code, I'd go and ask her. But the conversation was flowing. The understanding of the code. Even though I was writing RT stuff, I was writing FPGA stuff, still writing it in a way that Laura could actually pick it up and work with it. So it's actually taking it right back to level functions, taking it back to a basic understanding. So as any LabVIEW user could walk into the company. Hypothetically, me and Laura go under a bus later on today. Not that we're going to. Almost did on the roundabout end. So the company would be looking and thinking, oh my God, we can't do anything. We're going to have to get some new LabVIEW developers. But because you don't have to go looking for people who move, the rest of it, hey, presto. You could pretty much pick up just about any decent LabVIEW engineer and actually be able to pick this code up and run with it. But a real simplified approach on it. Between all the members of staff again. So it's just implementing what I've said previously in this presentation. It works. Our throughput on that one project alone was astronomical. We did 50% of the programming in 6 months, whereas another company, which will remain nameless, has taken about 4 years to do the same. Sorry, 7 years, I'm being told, to do the same job. And it's because of that communication and understanding between team members. It really does work. The whole time we were working on this project, the morale was amazing. And Laura will testify to this. That was amazing. The engagement's amazing. We're meant to start work at 7 o'clock in the morning. We were turning up at 6 a.m. We weren't leaving work till 7 o'clock at night because we were enjoying it and you were engaged. So that's where you get a sustainable, educated team from. Okay. So, in conclusion, how am I doing time wise? I'm probably way ahead of schedule, am I? 10 minutes. That's not bad. That's, and use it. If you have somebody in your company who is really good at doing something, use it. Don't leave them to just it to wash away. You know the old saying, when you go on a training course, you use it or you lose it. Use them. I've been pulled into stuff with our engineering team at the moment. Andy, we need to well, can you pull this apart? Can you put it back together again? Yeah, too right, I can. It's great. We're just about to start looking at data mining the last 20 years with test results. So we can start generating data trends and stuff like this. I mentioned it to them, which I've been doing for the last 5 years at my last company, which led to a massive increase in the actual throughput and production. Get together and share. You've got to work, you've got to share that information. I mean, I know a lot of people. There are quite a few people in the trade who are very, very almost like job insecure. So it'll be, I'm keeping this, I'm keeping this, I'm keeping this to myself, sort of thing. Work together, you're going even further. It really does work. Speaks for itself. Don't implement new frameworks and techniques just because you can. I've seen it done, and I've seen it go very wrong. If you implement a new framework or a new technique, justify it, train people in it, and then it's like you did at Renishaw. You wrote the new framework. Sorry, I'm pointing at Kabul here if anybody's asking. You put this new framework in, but you put a training course in for it, didn't you? So you understand, everybody understood it. Write the code so anybody can understand it. I write it so you're dealing with 1% of the LabVIEW population that can actually understand it. Write it so everybody can understand it. If everybody can understand it, it's going to make you a hell of a lot easier to find a new member of staff if someone gets up and leaves. Some things which you can't do simply, and I don't disagree, especially when it comes to things like high-speed DAG, high-speed file management, etc. And there will be certain things which some LabVIEW engineers can't do or they don't understand. There's nothing saying you can't sit down and explain it to them. Your teams are going to be very sustainable for that. Hi, any questions? Oh, there's fire, wouldn't we? Go on.
Just got some thoughts really. Like we went through like the process thing you talked about, and my background is sort of corporate, and then I moved to obviously running my own business, and always had a bit of a sort of poor impression of process because it was never really delivered that effectively in terms of introducing it. And we went through the ISO 9001 accreditation through that. Kind of a bit nervous about it, to be honest, because I was always a bit kind of the way you pitched it, really, the process is shy and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But if you get it right and tailor it and make sure it's not restrictive, it works really, really well. But you've got to do all the other stuff you've said about, which is making sure everybody's involved in that. And it's not just a dictatorship of how you think it should be. I think having people who use the process, be involved in developing the process, is like a massive part of that.
There's what I don't want people to take from this is that the engineers run the show. what I'm trying to put across here is that engineering or engineers to management is very much a two-way street. If you're not happy with something, flag it. A number of conversations I've had with my boss since I've been at Moog. There's several things about processes. There's several things about inclusion. There was stuff when I'll say it, I was over the road at Ultra, just literally over the way. And there was a number of issues. Flag them. Try and implement a change. If you can implement a change, brilliant, fantastic. Problem averted. But if it's got to go up through tier after tier after tier after tier, then you're going to be fighting. So what I'm trying to say is, if you keep your team happy, the team will keep the company happy. People will start looking at their jobs. I mean, what's the average lifespan of a job these days? I mean, what they say, 5 years or something before you switch jobs or switch roles. Actually, I go into a company, I'm so happy that I stay there till I retire and go back to those days. I mean, I know the economics and all that stuff is like just a nightmare at the moment with Trump and all the rest of it. So, but there's no reason why you can't make small changes to make a big impact in your business. So, any more questions? Come on, somebody's got, the man from Southampton.
Absolutely. So I've recently led a team, and I think a lot of things that there really do resonate with me, and I agree. Was conflict resolution. If people disagree, processes or
right. I'm going to answer that, and I'm going to plug a book which I've actually just read. There's a book called Fierce Conversations, and I went on what they call a PEP course, which is like a personal excellence program course. And they really plug this book, it's Fierce Conversations. Now, if you've got a room full of people and you want to let everybody have their say, you don't ever, when you're actually firing the meeting together, right? What they say, every person in that meeting gets an agenda to start with. Normal process. This is what we're going to talk about. Please come with your ideas. Don't read the meeting invite 2 minutes before you go to the meeting. I want your ideas because I'm going to ask you the question. Go around the room. Let everybody have their say. Then you take a consensus on it. Not saying projects should be controlled by democracy, but even the youngest individual can come up with one of the greatest ideas. They really can, because they're fresh. They come up with new stuff. I mean, I'm 50. Okay, I do come up with some good stuff sometimes. Generally involves a hammer action drill and a water pipe or something like that. But on the other hand, we've had some really great ideas. I mean, Laura's sat in a meeting before, come up with this. I can't for the life of me remember what you said, but she came out with this one comment and it just stopped everybody in their tracks. And it was like, actually, that's genius. Stupid things. And listen to the full breadth. Listen to the full breadth. You don't have to implement everything, but it gives you gives you the opportunity to say, we're going to do this. All had your actual say. When people come out of that meeting room, they can't ever turn around and say, I didn't have my say. I'm trying to think. I'll look up the book in a bit. I'll give you the title of it. It's absolutely amazing. So, any more questions? Come on, Adrian. Come on. Go on. No? Yeah. It's stating the obvious. It really is stating the obvious. But somebody's got to say it. It really is. So,